again, as you know, this weekend was rather violent weekend in terms of deaths. There were 5 homicides out of 3 incidents, one on a Friday night and one Saturday and one Sunday. And in that, I want to make sure that we as a city let the community know and the families of those who have lost their lives that we give our condolence as we try to combat violence, particularly gun violence with juveniles. And as I said, there were 5 deaths in 3 incidents, and there were about 10 people who were injured in terms of gunshots, and out of that 10, 5 passed away. Other than there were 2 adults and 3 juveniles. 2 adults and 3 juveniles. And which leads us to the whole question as to why is this persisting? And I will tell you that from our point of view, mine in particular, that it is about the availability of guns. Availability of guns in the hands of those who are not legally, do not legally have the right to have them. And in this case, particularly juveniles, children who have guns, and the access they have to those guns and the type of guns that they have results in death. And so as we move forward and we look at the things that we're doing, not only to do law enforcement in terms of the number of police officers we're putting on the street this year, particularly those police officers in what we call the NICE unit that will be assigned specifically to hot spots to deal specifically with guns and drugs and things like that, but also the prevention aspect in the hiring of Mr. Dwayne Deskin to look at how do we address those underlying causes of violence, particularly youth violence. I'm going to turn over to the chief who will go over the incidents, the various incidences that resulted in deaths, and then we will turn it over to Commander Gingell, who will talk about the activity that we're doing out in the street and those things that we're doing that, you know, the very interesting part about this is that you can never measure what you prevent. We know what had happened, and it's tragic, but you can never measure what you have prevented. And part of what Commander Gingell will do is talk about the actions that they've taken over the last, this year, and talk about how in that action we know that we have prevented similar incidents from happening from that. So, Chief.
Thanks, Mayor. Before I get started, I want to acknowledge the presence of a couple of our federal partners here. Special Agent in charge of the Cleveland office of the FBI, Stephen Anthony, and Supervisory Agent in charge of the Cleveland Field Office for ATF, Eric Pry, our continued law enforcement partners in this fight against gun violence. As the Mayor stated, I'm just going to go back over the 3 key weekend events that happened that resulted in death. On Friday evening, there was a person killed that at first it was believed to be on Rocky River Drive, but through investigation of our officers and our detectives, we later found that the actual incident happened on the near east side of Cleveland, and the victim was then driven back to that area near Rocky River Drive and basically dumped. When our officers got there, they discovered that, started to talk to a lot of witnesses, mainly the witness that was supposedly in the car with him, and were able to piece together what happened exactly with that incident. We have made 1 arrest in that incident, and we're seeking information on more individuals involved in that, so we ask the public's help and call in our homicide unit if they have information related to that homicide. And all the incidents that we're going to talk about today, especially the ones that involve homicides, if you have information if you can give our homicide unit a call, that number is 623-5464, 623-5464, with any and all the information that you may have. We know now that on Saturday, this past Saturday, that there was what we now think was a running vehicular gun battle on Woodland Avenue between East 89th and East 79th. In that incident, a total of 4 people were actually shot. 2 of those people expired. One 15-year-old juvenile actually expired yesterday as a result of the injuries from this past Saturday. And as the mayor stated, there was a 61-year-old gentleman, Mr. Wilder, that was basically caught in the crossfire, and our hearts go out to his family. Of the people involved in the incident on Saturday, there are 3 people that are currently in custody of the Division of Police that we believe were directly involved in the shootings and the homicides in this case. But again, we know that there are other people involved in these or that had information on these cases, so we asked the public's help in giving us that information. Yesterday was another incident in which we believe there was a running gun battle involving 2 vehicles. In that incident, a total of 5 people were shot. 2 of those juveniles. We believe one may be an adult, but we have yet to verify that. But the 2 individuals that lost their lives were in a vehicle that ended around the area of 75th and Kinsman. Again, we've recovered weapons in both of these incidents. We've recovered other physical evidence, and we are questioning both victims, surviving victims, and witnesses in all these incidents to gather information on additional suspects. What all this boils down to is, as the mayor stated early, the availability of weapons in this city, and that access that especially juveniles have to those weapons. And we need the public's help, specifically people close to those juveniles, in letting us know what's going on so we can prevent things like that transpired this past weekend. We know that there are people close to both the victims and the suspects in these cases because we did find weapons on some of the victims. We do know that there are people out there, whether they be friends, associates, family members, that know what was going on in both of these incidents and could have, with that information being given to the right people, prevented both incidents. So we're asking the public's help in this. I'm asking specifically for family members that know these things are going on in their homes, in their neighborhoods, to give us a call. Because right now it looks like, you know, just one-on-one, group-on-group disagreements or neighborhood disagreements that spill over in our community in violence. And it shouldn't happen. So the people that have that information, our detectives and our frontline officers are working tirelessly out there to get guns off the streets. And we've done that this year to the tune of over 200 guns. And of course, we know there are a lot more out there. So we need folks to step up. This has to be a community effort. This has to be something that is not just involving the Division of Police and the administration and City Hall. Our community has to step up, because if we don't, I can guarantee you that things like this are going to happen in the future. And it's unfortunate, because we have the information, we have the wherewithal, with all the people you see here today, to prevent these things from happening. So I implore the community's help, and specifically the family members, the friends, the associates of the people involved in this thing and similar incidents, to give us a call, get us the information so we can get these guns off the streets. With that said, I'm going to bring up Commander Gary Ginjo from our Special Ops section, and he'll talk a little bit about some of the things we're doing. Gary?
Thanks, Chief. What we're doing, part of it's just old-fashioned. I mean, the first responders respond to a shooting or shots fired. They may arrest a suspect, collect a gun. That's the first part of it. The second part of it is a little more pointed. That's our gang impact unit. There are 2 squads. Their focus is gun violence throughout the city, but obviously They key in the 4th and the 5th districts. The chief looks at the pin maps, and he gives us the direction as to where to go. In the course of their duties, just this, it's not even the first quarter yet, but of those 200 guns, these two units, these two squads have taken 51 of those guns off the street. And that includes 11 guns last week. What they do is they're out patrolling on the streets. They're also doing investigations into gangs and such. They use the state gang law. It's a felony too. They go after things that are happening immediately. They back up the zone cars. In 2 instances in the last week, there was aggravated robbery in progress. They responded, assisted the zone cars, arrested 5 total people, and got a couple guns. So they're basically focused on violence, both the immediate side and then long-term investigation. Our partners, ATF and FBI, who the chief pointed out, are integral to what we do. We have actually agents that ride with these two squads. So there's immediate federal action taken when it's a possibility. And the federal action, especially when you're talking about gun possession for a career criminal, over in county court, they may get 6 months, a year or something, probation, whatever. In federal court, it's a lot stiffer. And the way we're addressing this is, with this targeting with Gang Impact Unit, is there what we call serial shooters out there? They may be involved in 2 or 3 shootings where the victim does not want to cooperate. He's a member of another gang, or he's just somebody who's too scared to cooperate, or whatever the situation is, but he doesn't cooperate, so we don't have a case. And then we catch that guy with a gun. We know through, the street, the intelligence and stuff like that, that, this is most likely the shooter in these other events. So we arrest him with the gun, but all we have is this F4 charge. And, he's not going to go to prison for a long time with that. But if he's got the right record, we can get this serial shooter off the street using ATF and using our partners in FBI, whether it's a carjacking or an aggravated robbery or just a felony possession of a career criminal. In particular, with these arrests last week at the IX Center, there was some issues with crowds. And our Gang Impact Unit went up there, and they're covert. They're just kind of watching what's happening behind the scenes. And through their information, they started watching 3 guys, and they ended up grabbing those 3 guys, and they had 3, each one of them had a gun. And we know for a fact, and I won't get into the details, we know for a fact that there would have been shootings there had that arrest not taken place. So, they are they get out ahead of the game. They also deal with the immediate issues that are going on. Sunday, as a matter of fact, they were called in again for those shootings there. They were in a few different areas where those shootings happened. We also called our SWAT guys in. So there's a bunch of different responses we do, but the Gang Impact Unit is kind of like the lead for gun violence, so to speak, and they work directly with the homicide unit on homicides. They're working with them on these here. The lieutenant in homicide can direct these guys to do whatever he needs to be done. It's kind of an expansion of, his assets. Chief,
No, that's great, Gary. Mayor?
Questions?
Okay, and I apologize with the short notice. I wasn't able to get here at the beginning. It sounds like the IX Center incident was gang-related.
No, that's not what he said.
Location of who was in what gang there. It's just a bunch of young kids that were there. They started hustling. I'm sorry. I don't have any indication right now that there was one gang or another there. I'm not saying that there wasn't gang members there. With that many people, I'm sure that there was. But in this particular instance, we're not pinning this gang against that gang. It was just these guys saw somebody who they had issues with, and they intended on shooting them.
And if I may,
Sorry.
the point that I don't want to be lost, he was trying to make, is that these are juveniles, and that they had guns. And the Gang Impact Unit or the NICE unit, undercover people, they go where there are crowds of juveniles, and they watch, and they observe. And fortunately, they were able to stop these 3 young people, and they had guns on them, and they had bad intent. If they had not done that, then would have been some shooting, and some people would have been injured and possibly died. That's what I was talking about when I said there are things that they do that prevents, that you really can't measure the impact of it, because we don't know what the incident would have been or how many people injured if, in fact, there was some shooting out there.
And are the other shootings, and again, I apologize, are the other shootings that happened over the weekend related to the IX Center incident?
No information. There's no connection to that.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
a question for you. I know that in the past, you have, and the city council here has pushed to have home rule to be able to control guns and availability of guns, and down in the State House, they thwarted your efforts. Do you see these killings and the availability of guns as a direct impact of the state taking away your home rule so you cannot?
Well, I will tell you, when they did it, if you remember, I forget how many years ago that occurred, and we had we held a press conference, and we had a collection of guns that were there as a visual demonstration of the type of guns we were confiscating. Some of them were assault rifles and pistols, automatic handguns, semi-automatic. And I remember then Chief McGrath, now Director McGrath, said one thing when asked a question. He said, "I don't know when or where or who, but I guarantee you somebody gonna die as a result of this pulling away our ability to regulate inside the city of Cleveland." And so right now, assault weapons are legal in the city of Cleveland. Before they were not. Right now, you can purchase a handgun in the city of Cleveland. Previously, they were not. You were not able to. So our ability to control things on a local level has been tremendously hampered. And yes, I believe that the availability of guns in the hands of people who should not have it. We're not talking about the people who legally own and are responsible. We're talking about in the hands, as the commander said, criminals, in the hands of kids. And when you have very immature people, meaning kids, with the kind of culture mentality that they possess out in the street, the first thing to do is gun. Again, IX Center, 3 guns, right? And I imagine, Commander, that if you were able to search everybody who went in there, you might have found more.
But given that reality, what can you do? What are you going to do now to try to stop this?
Well, we did a comprehensive revamping of our gun laws and our regulations in the city, and we, knowing that we could not do it contrary to state law, we did it in a way that we believe is in line with state law, that allows us to have a little more authority than we had, but not as much authority as we had in the beginning. And I think we passed that, went through the council committee, and it was challenged by I think by the NRA. And we won that in, I believe, is it state court, or I forget which court, but we won that fight. And so, but still, what we have available to us to do is very limited based on state law.
Are you talking more now about stop, question, and frisk, or is that some of the kind of things that you're doing?
No, we're not doing anything that's unconstitutional. We're doing things that are within the Constitution. But when we have some well-trained officers with gang impact, ATF is with them as they go out, and I think FBI may even be with them. Yes. So there's some, there's legal ways in which you can do things. Now, I will say that when they go out, is my understanding, that they do look at targeted areas where there is a high level of gun violence, homicides, drug activity, those kind of things. And they do concentrate there. That is why the chief said just this year alone, there's been over 200 guns confiscated, And of those 200, over 50 have been confiscated by the gang impact unit.
Just in 2017?
Oh, yeah.
Where are they originating from? Like, how are these guns coming into the city?
Well, that's a good question. I don't know the answer.
The gun shows are a huge, huge place where they come from. Burglaries are another place. As far as the states that they come from, we send them over to ATF for, tracing and stuff like that. But, yeah, gun shows are huge, what we call straw purchases. You go in, you don't have a record, you buy 4 or 5 guns, and then you take them home, you give them to your boyfriend who's got a record, and he sells them for, whatever you can get for them, and makes a profit.
And if you listen to children, just go out on the street and just talk to a bunch of young males, 15, 14, 16, 17. You ask them about a gun. If they don't have one on them, they'll tell you where you can get one.
And social media has been huge in organizing some of these fights and whatnot. Do you guys believe that it played a role at the IX Center fight?
I think anytime you're dealing with the youth, social media plays a role because that's how they communicate. If I want to talk to my son, I text him, it's like, I don't call him because he won't answer. But I think they can put a lot of information out there that a lot of people can see, whether it's about a concert or a party or whatever. So, yeah, I would say social media plays a definite role in all of that.
And Chief, as far as the Saturday and Sunday shootings, Kinsman and Woodland, have police determined or do police believe that those two are related? And if both or either are gang related?
As far as being related, we have some inclination that they may have been related. We have yet to verify that and put all the pieces of the puzzle together. But there are some similar aspects, of course, vehicles involved. And then there are also some people from similar areas of the city that are involved in both of those shootings. But we can't confirm that right now, but we are heavily leaning towards there's some aspect of connectivity between Saturday and Sunday shootings. And that's why, again, we need the public's help because we don't want there to be further retaliation or anything else that goes along with these incidents. We want to stop this right now.
How much are you using violence interrupters in trying to thwart some of this?
Director Griffin is here, and that's kind of his area of expertise. Director.
Thank you. Yes, one of the things that we did this week is contact the Peacemakers Alliance. A lot of the Peacemakers Alliance went to the hospitals with the victims and the families. They then also translated to go out to the streets in order to try to prevent retaliatory shootings. That is continuing today. It is spring break for a lot of the Cleveland Metropolitan School District children, so they're trying to find opportunities for them to be involved in rec center programs and other things. So the Peacemakers Alliance, which is a group of approximately 24 paid, as well as several other groups that volunteer and are activists in our city, have deployed to many of the hot spots that we work in conjunction with the Cleveland Division of Police in order to try to prevent further violence from taking place.
Mr. Mayor? Yes. The city still owns the IX Center, correct? The city still owns the IX Center, correct?
Yes.
Is there any talk of installing metal detectors permanently there for crowds like this?
Well, we're not, huh?
I don't think there was anything inside. It was out in the park.
This was outside?
Yes.
Yeah. He said, the chief says this incident was outside. We don't operate it, even though we own it, we don't operate it. There's an operator there. Anybody else?
Chief, can you address Mr. Wilder? Was he just driving through the city when the incident happened? Was that like a shootout? He was just driving through it? Or was just...
Yeah, we believe that he was probably on his way somewhere west on Woodland Avenue near 89th Street, and a bullet was fired from one of those two vehicles that went through his windshield.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.